Now then, I'm Cage Warriors lightweight champion George Hardwick.
I am the Cage Warriors featherweight #1 ranked contender Harry Hardwick.
And we're just going to talk about 2022 because it was quite an interesting year for us personally. Overall, it was a bit shit considering the economic state of the world right now. But let's get into it. So, first fight that either of us had was in March. I fought Lucas Capera on March 18th or 17th. Who even cares? Originally, that was supposed to be a title fight. That was supposed to be against Daniel Belluardo, ex-UFC Italian wrestler. Originally supposed to be him, but I think he got a 5-star wanted level or something. So I fought Capera. He was a Polish fella from, was it Iron Cross Gym in Poland? I don't even know. I should have known, but I fought him. So he came out, and this was at a catch weight of 161, which is 155 plus a large Parmesan, because large Parma was about 3 kilos. So I fought him at 161. He comes out. He does some grappling first. And he's literally like a fucking statue. He just turns into like an iron statue as soon as he's gripping me. And I just feel that like diminish more and more and more. Bumped in.
Yeah, like I could even hear him breathing. Like from outside the cage, I could hear him breathe, how heavy he was breathing, just squeezing you.
Yeah, we bumped into Mr. Hamburg, who's Harilla's coach, and he just says, some Polish fighters, it's just more roid power. That was his words, not mine. But anyway, and then in the second round, he was just plodding, and it was just left hooks, left hooks, left hooks. I knew at that point I'm probably going to have to elbow and knee him because my hand was starting to hurt. When the referee stopped the fight, there was no, yes, I've won a fight, that's great, I'm going to run around. It was just, thank fuck, my hand's knacking. After the fight, this knuckle that was swollen just kept popping in and out of position. That was fun. Had to deal with that for a bit.
Yeah, he had a big cinder block of a head. Yeah, he was awkward. He was very, when he'd get hit, he would just start hitting the buttons on his controller and like flinging things back. And it was quite an awkward one to deal with. But I think the adjustment of the double collar tie and the knees up the middle and all that worked really well. I could have probably done with a bit of that in one of my fights this year that we will talk about later on, but that seems to be a really good adjustment when someone's got a big old cinder block of a head, elbows and knees.
Yeah, because then you cut them, and it's like you can take a punch, but knees and elbows do a bit more damage to them. And as well as that, I was watching Anderson Silva finishes on the day of the fight, and I was watching his finishes with Rich Franklin, where he's not throwing massive combinations left, right. Each shot is just boom, 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 boom. So if it took him like 5 hours to finish someone, regardless of like endurance, whatever, he could do it because he's always measured and he's always feeding them into the next shot rather than just opening up with both hands, hitting shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. There was a lot of, I wouldn't say it was like the best performance ever.
No, I had like cheesecake and everything the week before. I could feel like an extra 6 pounds on me.
Yeah, it did the job. Got the guy out of there. Yeah, very. What was very concerning though was we found out afterwards that like some of the judges had scored that first round to him, which is mental considering he just scores you on the fence, and then you took him down and like, or at least reversed it, and then started hitting him at the end of that first round. Like, it's bizarre that the judges scored it to him.
Anyway, we'll get on more bizarre judging. So next fight,
mine in Belfast. Yeah, so I was originally slated to be fighting in Manchester, but it was really frustrating because I just didn't get an opponent. I kept not getting an opponent, and then apparently a bunch of guys turned me down. I'm sort of vaguely aware of who they were, but it is what it is, and it was mad frustrating, and then I ended up injuring my hand punching a wall.
That was actually before my fight in March, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the week. So I couldn't really like do the pads properly for George, but you know the All Strike pad, the one that looks like a prosthetic head. Would you have a prosthetic head? I don't know. But it's like a little
everything these days.
It's like a little foam rubber head thing. So I had to pack that in the cases to take to London, and that was awkward. But it was the only pad I could hold because my right hand was a balloon. But yeah, so I didn't end up fighting in April, which was very frustrating, and then still ended up going on the holiday that was booked for after those fights that were meant to be booked for and stuff. And then I just jumped straight into a fight camp for Belfast because I was just like, I'm losing time, I'm losing time, I'm losing time. I need to get into this. And then I did pretty much an entire fight camp where I could barely throw any right hands. And on the first spar that we had, a fight camp, I throw a left hook, I catch a kick, and throw this leaping left hook. And as I'm leaping forward, George ducks his level to avoid the left hook because he's on one leg. There's not a lot of like defense you can do while you're on one leg. So he just dropped his level, and his forehead smashed right into the middle of my forehead, and then this big cut here. So I had like a very awkward and frustrating fight camp. But then against an opponent that we didn't really know a whole lot about.
No, a lot of unknowns. The guy was Federico Pasquale. He was like Federico.
It's not Fred, it's Fed.
But yeah, he was 7-0 at the time, wasn't
he? Yeah, he's 7-0, and like the only thing we'd really, the only observation we've really been able to make from being able to find some of his fights here and there is that, okay, he's throwing more straight punches than hooking punches now. And that when he gets tired, he's probably going to go back to the hooking punches.
And he's a jiu-jitsu guy. That's what we thought a lot as well.
Yeah, and like he's predominantly from a jiu-jitsu gym. And he's a jiu-jitsu guy. And like some of that really did come through in the fight because the fight started and I kind of stood in my out of range stance, in range a bit too much. Like, you know, when you're getting out of range in a fight, when you really feel like you're out of range, there's no point in having like a high guard, you know, having this rigidity throughout your body. When you're well out of range, you take that second to allow your shoulders to relax, to get your deep breaths in. But for whatever reason, for whatever bit of stupidity that was going on in my brain, I was kind of in that stance while I was entering striking range. And then, you know, things are going well at first. I managed to fake him back up to the fence, do all this stuff, get some bizarre karate block on an overhand. Then I get kind of like hit with a jab and stumble, and I pick him up, and then the crowd peer pressures me into putting him down badly. And then I get dropped, like really, really badly.
Yeah. I remember because you were holding pads for me before, and you're like, L-step, you should L-step more, L-step, L-step. And then you were doing L-step right in front of him and you're getting dropped because your feet aren't underneath you.
Yeah, it was a
like whilst moving forward.
No, I wasn't moving forward. No, it was and to be fair, it was kind of a weird L-step / stance switch. It was just a very indecisive movement with my feet because basically I've showed that to people. One of my girlfriend's friends is a boxing manager, and I was talking to him the other day, and she was just talking about how stressful that fight was. And I was like, oh yeah, look at me getting dropped here. And he was like, and then obviously because he's from boxing, watching someone getting like leathered while they're on the floor isn't good either. But yeah, I did this lazy whatever with my feet and got pinged with this beautiful right hand. Like, I can't stress this enough. That was one of the best right hands I've seen. Well, or didn't see, because clearly I didn't see it. And then he starts swarming in on me and trying to finish me. And I managed to do a good job of using my guards and the threat of the up kicks to make him back off. And then, yeah, he managed to land a few more ground and pound shots. And then that first round went horribly. But then I managed to pull it back just through, like, pressure and overwhelming him and going southpaw a lot more and, like, not putting a lot into my strikes. So instead of, like, trying to hit him and giving him these openings to counter, just like, almost slapping my shots into him. And then when he would stay still, or when I'd get him stood still from that, that's when I'd be able to dig my bigger shots in. In the second round, I hurt him badly to the body a few times with a body kick, a knee, and then some body shots towards the end of the round. I come so close to finishing him in that 1 or 2 points in that second round, and then the third round was just really one-way traffic, and I managed to take him down. And then I'm like, oh yeah, he's a jiu-jitsu guy, but like, there's nothing special down here, especially now he's tired and beat up, and I managed to just hold him down. And then the fight got scored a draw. I've watched it a few times, obviously, and I can see the argument for a 10-8 round in the first round, but there's also an argument that it wasn't a 10-8, whereas the second and the third round were really decisively my rounds. It's like it was a draw, but there is an argument I won. There is not an argument at all that he won. So it's a draw that I won.
Two things from that fight is I remember. So when Harry's had this habit of having bad first rounds. In his Bellator debut, he got kneed in the head and sliced open. It was pretty bad. He got dropped by Ndoye in the first round and came back to win that. Both those fights, he's hurt his rib and he's come back to win. This one, and normally when that happens, I'm like, oh, shit, fuck. Everything's fucking fizzing, like, shit. It's like your heart drops and everything. This fight, he gets dropped and, he's been dropped. He'll probably scramble out of it, probably. Oh, he's been dropped again. He'll probably scramble out again, probably. And then he got back to the corner instead of being, oh shit, he's got dropped. It was just, all right, breathe. Probably bring the guard in just slightly. You can turn your hands out to parry. And then the other thing about the decision of the draw, so I said to you, was whether that was a draw or whether you won, it doesn't change the exchanges that happened in the fight. And it doesn't change that you got dropped twice, and it doesn't change what you did well. So that was my main thing, was thinking back from that, without getting too anal deep in techniques.
Also, winning it's always better to be winning as the fight's finishing than it is to be winning when the fight's starting, I always think.
Yeah, that kind of pride scoring. Anyway, so next fight was my fight for the title. And this fight camp started pretty horribly. Just been to Edinburgh, I was like 88 kilos. Didn't expect to be fighting in this time frame, whatever. I'm pretty heavy, and I get staph for the first time ever. I've trained martial arts since I was 12, grappling, like MMA, since I was 15. Never had staph.
That is the one real benefit about my holiday.
Yeah.
I'm the only person in the gym who went, of the people who were like always in the core group of guys. I'm the only one who didn't get staph when it went around, because I was in Spain.
But yeah, so 12 years grappling, however many years grappling, first time ever, bad timing. And that's the time I get the contracts through for fighting Kyle Driscoll for the Cage Warriors belt. So that's my first title fight. I thought, there was feelings that I'd already blown it before it even happened. And it was like 3 months until the fight. I'm heavy, I'm out of shape because I couldn't train because I've had staph and all this. And then there was a good period where there wasn't many training partners about.
Because of the staff, my injury, like...
Well, mainly Ramadan. We got...
Oh, yeah, that as well.
It passed at that point. No one had it at that point. Just a couple guys had it, sorted in like a week or two. No one was in, that was fine. Then Ramadan, a lot of people, like Muslim training partners, weren't in. And it was just, I'm thinking I'm training like one or two guys here, and he's training at AKA with Makachev and Khabib and all of them people who exist. I'm like, shit. But it was just a kind of mentality switch. Just thinking, well, I have Harry, I have Abdul. Everything else on top of that is a bonus. I can win a world championship with just that. So every training partner who comes in, it's just a bonus.
And then, to people's credit, when I was because I was like, all right, we need more people in. I was like messaging around. We had Kieran and Ryan Grayson, full-time bricklayer, full-time electrician. They used to fight amateur out of our gym, and they were really good. Johnny Hoole, fireman, again, used to be an amateur fighter out of our gym. Alex Thompson, engineer, all these people with these... British Judo Squad. All these people with their full-time jobs and their lives that they're committed to, who were really good at MMA, but obviously, I think every one of them could go on to be professional fighters if that was what they wanted to do, but they've all chose to do, real things with their lives, where they can afford houses and families and stuff. All of these guys really stepped up and came in and helped out and really mucked in and helped out for that fight camp. So can't express gratitude enough for those regular Joes who are actually savages.
Yes. Anyway, the fight itself, so there was a lot of things I was trying to develop, like a different unorthodox movement and stance switching, and then I just played to my A game of high guard moving forward, which you think is not like a great wrestling defense. I walked into a lot of straight punches. He has quite developed feints. He doesn't have the biggest power, but he had a really developed feint at a long range. He was jabbing. What he was doing really well, he was, say I was blocking, he would feint to make me block, and that second I'd relax. He'd pop a straight shot through. That was really good. So there was a lot of that in the first and second round, which was pretty tricky. He had a kind of scrape to his shots as well, which in 4-ounce gloves, go down the nose. That's why I got cuts on my nose. And I remember thinking, shit, I'm the striker and I'm getting embarrassed. Is my striking as good as I think it is? Having those thoughts in the fight, but he's really just on autopilot, so it doesn't really change it. Those first 2 rounds started to get the momentum towards the end of the second, but were pretty ropey.
Yeah, and just on the topic of those feints, we did hear his corner shouting, "Go first and third," a lot, because they were clearly wanting to use the fakes and the non-committed stuff and the scrapey stuff to draw George's counters out, and then have something prepared to counter those counters with. And it was working really well initially for them, but I think a few things really played into that. One, obviously George has much better striking cardio than Kyle. And two, it was just because George's pressure was dialing up and dialing up and dialing up, and he was accelerating through the fight. It was like Kyle was doing whatever he could to draw the counter out. But by the time the counter had come, George's pressure and the combination of the pressure and the way that the counters were mixing up and around the guard is like George's counters were putting Kyle out of position, and then he would still try and throw a little bit, but by then he was out of position. So he ended up tiring himself out quite a bit. And then obviously later on, George started going fourth. So it was like Kyle would go first, George would counter, Kyle would try and counter, and then George would counter Kyle's counter. I think the first knockdown was a little bit like that.
Yeah, in the third round is where I started So I got the first knockdown in the third round. He throws 3 shots and they kind of hit glove, glove, glove. This is where he's flattening against the fence more. If you're seeing someone breaking, these are things you see. It's not necessarily you land one big shot and you see him suddenly break. Over the course of a 5-round fight, it's little signs. It's like they might take their eyes off you for a second. They get a little bit less disciplined with the stance in that situation. Maybe they just walk like a normal walk for a second and then get back into the stance. Maybe instead of throwing 3 or 4 shots like they were earlier, they just throw 1 and move off. There's those little signs. First body shot, knockdown. He throws 3 shots, and it's just that kind of counter, keeping their eyes in. At this point, I nearly fucked it at that point, because I body shot him, knocked him down, and when he got up, that was when I took the worst shots of the fight.
Just before, because the audio never picked it up, but just before that knockdown happened, I shout, "Jab his chest!" because I thought Kyle was going to shoot, so I wanted George to just jab his chest and jam the level. And then Kyle throws a body jab, and I just shout, "Not you, Kyle!" And I can see he smiles, and then that's when he gets dropped seconds later. So I'm taking more credit for that than I deserve.
But yeah, he gets back up, hits me quite hard. There's a moment where I swing a left hook and he throws a right straight in the middle, and that kind of rocks me for a second. That's a really bad shot to get hit by at any point when you're throwing a hook. Either way it goes, if you're throwing a hook and get hit by a straight shot down the middle, that's really bad because it's hitting the side of your chin. If you throw a straight shot and a hook comes over it, it's kind of that shootout kind of exchange. Both bad ways, but I throw a hook, he hits me through the middle, but I keep the pressure on. And then it's the 4th round where he's really breaking. There's a point in the 4th round where he shoots a hard takedown. His back's on the fence, he shoots me, and I just defend with all my might. And I go all the way across the cage. My back nearly touches the fence, but I managed to shuck him off with an underhook and a head winch. Shuck him off. At every point in the fight when there was a big exchange like that, I would just circle back to the middle, take a few deep breaths, and then I'm back into it. I was actually forcing the breath so much, being aware of it being a 5-round fight, that at one point, it doesn't even get knocked out. I'm just breathing that hard. I go, and my gum shield pops out and I have to push it back in. But anyway, circle back in the middle, and he's just about 60 to 70% had been taken off his shots, and I just kind of keep touching him. The finishing shot, it was like a fake hook to the head, hook to the body. As he circles that way towards the left, fake body hook. And when you land those body hooks, really a good one, you're not even aware that you've hit a really good shot. You're only aware when they drop. Then he's down, and I could feel with each shot, because training for that title, I originally got called up to fight for the title in October 21. My first title fight was supposed to be December 21 against Mehdi Ben Lakhdar, but that fell through on the day because he had a positive COVID test back in that funny time of the world. But anyway, and I can feel it with each punch. As noodly and weak as the ground and pound is, all I know I just have to keep tapping him away. with his noodle weak ground and pound, pretty much throwing it back at the same time. Yeah, and I just feel with each fucking punch, it's like, it's my belt, it's my belt. And then when Mark Goddard put his hands on my tits and pushed me off, it was just an explosion. I did this little circle round, dropped on the floor, started screaming that. I did the same thing when I completed Challenge 51 on God Hand. Just run around, jump on the floor, screaming. But yeah, as crazy as that is, and as huge a part of my life that was, after 3 days, it's like, oh yeah, sound, yeah. What's next?
Yeah.
So next fight?
Was my fight against Steve Aimable. So I asked for that fight just because I thought, if any fight's going to like put me up in the division more, that's the one. Steve Aimable was on probably a career best form at that point. I think he was on a 4-fight winning streak. Been around the block, fought everyone. So it's like, it was a really good measuring stick of what level I was at, you know. Like, the champ at the time, Vucenic, could only manage to win a very close split decision over him. Mads Bennell had beat him decisively, but Aimable had still like really had his moments in that fight and hurt him a few times. So I was like, right, I've got to. This is the guy who I've got to fight, really. So I come out and I'm just giving him all kinds of different looks because he's very, very like he likes making his reads. You know, like he's a sort of measured old school fighter. He has his straight punches. He has a good double jab right hand. He has like a few tools that he can make work against many different opponents. So I was just never really giving him a read that he could settle on. Sometimes I was going high guard, sometimes I was going southpaw, sometimes I was going long guard, sometimes I was just sort of jazzing my hands about like this. Just giving him all sorts of stuff to discombobulate his brain. And then as this is going through and we're fighting for the center position, he starts fading just that little bit. He starts, you could see he's starting to struggle a bit more with it. And then from inside foot position, from the southpaw stance against his orthodox stance, I land this 1-2 down the center and wobble him really bad. The myth about outside foot position in opposite stances and stuff is just this one of the most bizarrely, like, commonly perpetuated falsehoods in combat sports. From inside foot position, I ping him with a 1-2 because my shoulder had a straight line to the target. That's all that matters. Ping him with this 1-2, hurt him really bad, and then I start just sort of throwing these weird whatever combinations, like I'm just sort of hitting the buttons in whatever random order. And I'm just staying on him, pressuring him to the fence, keeping his back on the fence. It was my first time fighting in the O2, so George's 2 fights that year had been in the O2, which is where the cage is smaller. And like that does really benefit us because, you know, we tend to do well when we get guys' backs against the fence. But yeah, I was just hitting him, just looping weird shots around his guard. And he was just doing a fucking good job of, like, every time I could feel the ref getting closer and closer and coming in to stop it, he would grab something, or he would manage to initiate a clinch, or he would just throw back enough. And it was frustrating because I really wanted to be the first guy to get him out of there, but like, yeah, he did do a good job of surviving. And then in the second round, just out of pure instinct, I catch a kick that he throws and I push him to the floor. And then this is where we start talking to each other. Because, like, I've caught this kick and I push him to the floor and I take him down. And then, like, as I'm holding him down on top of him, it means I'm not throwing punching combinations at him anymore. I'm like, oh, this benefits you, doesn't it? And he was like, yeah, I'm just going to hold on, mate. And then I start driving the shoulder pressure in, hitting him. And then his corner's screaming at him to get up. And he's like, yeah, I know, I'm trying. And then I was like, okay, he's frustrated now. And he does this big movement where I managed to immediately body triangle him. I'm riding him for the rest of the round and I'm hitting him. And then in the third round, I'm literally just like throwing the kitchen sink as far as approaches go because I've swarming him with combinations has been working but not getting him out of there. So I start doing weird side kicks and managed to land a turning side kick which still doesn't drop him and like all kinds of weird different things. And then towards the end of the fight, I shoot a terrible takedown where he manages to latch around my neck for a guillotine. And then I do the old like shoulder defense where I just peel my shoulder back, around and through. And then his grip was gone, but I was like, God, imagine how stupid it would have been if I got caught with that.
Yeah. The first thing I said to Harry, probably best performance of his career considering opponent level, as soon as I saw him, if you got guillotined in the last 20 seconds, I would have disowned you.
Yeah, which is fair. It's fair. Like, I remember even thinking at the time, oh, this is fucking stupid. And then I just sort of like shouldered in. grab this out. Felt that he was going to throw this knee, and then like as his knee was coming through, it, nope. But yeah, best performance of my career, really. I'm still gutted I didn't finish him. Like there was a few opportunities where like maybe a different decision here and there, and I'd have finished him. But no one's done that to him. No one. Mads Bennell, Vucenic, nobody has done that to Steve Aimable, and then I 30-26 him and make it look pretty effortless. I still managed to get a black eye and a cut though because my skin's awful and my skull is pointy.
It wasn't one of the cuts like immediately after you're doing the Roy Jones thing. Like not too long after, maybe 10 seconds after you do the Roy Jones thing, and then he hits a right hand that kind of does that. Isn't that?
I thought it was on a calf kick, so I threw quite a naked calf kick and ducked my head, but didn't fully get off centre. And as he threw a right hand, it skimmed me here. But I don't know. It is what it is. But yeah, was good.
Yeah, I was pleased with that. It was very similar to a lot of the spars that Harry had. It was so weird cornering it because it was just going so according to plan that I didn't have to say much.
Yeah, like the only thing, one of the main differences is like in the spars, obviously, you're not putting your shots in and hurting someone and having to like swarm on them and stuff. But a lot of the other stuff just came through like that, which is good news. Puts me in position for a title shot, but then there are a few other awkward things here and there, like not sure what Paul Hughes is doing or if he's going away, and I might not necessarily be available for the Dublin date. So I just want to keep fighting. So I don't care who the fuck it is. I'm going to aim to fight March 17th, day before the UFC. And the last fight of the year is your first title defense.
Yeah, first title defense, which came up on really short notice actually. So I passed my driving test on this Wednesday, and I'm thinking, I'm going to be driving that Corsa. It's going to be difficult. The Corsa that was dead.
The Corsa that I'd had for many years, and it's a 1.2 petrol, and I'd been driving it because my girlfriend lives in Aylesbury, so that's like a 3.5, 4 hour drive. I'd be driving it there and back most weeks, driving to Newcastle once a week, Washington twice a week. I'd gone to Stirling, gone to Liverpool. I've done all these big motorway drives that car is not designed to do. Just get a bigger engine if you're going to do that.
Yeah, and then as he's reversing up to strength and conditioning gym, Unit 29 in Washington, he's reversing and it just clonks out. Starts smelling of gas and all kinds of weird shit.
It's like making a machine gun noise.
Funnily enough, whilst we were listening to Combustion by Meshuggah, so we don't put that on in the car anymore because it might knacker the car. Do the strength and conditioning session. We sit around in the cafe after, having coffees, waiting for the tow truck to pick it up. And that's when I got the call, the text even, the message about fighting Chris Bungard in 4 weeks' time. And I thought, yeah, perfect timing. One more fight before the year ends. I'm in really good shape anyway. My weight had dropped to like 79 at that point, which is perfect. I tend to fight around 77, 78. Yeah, so perfect timing. And it was a fight I was pretty dissatisfied with. So if you don't know what happened, in the first round, I'm pretty in control. I land a lot of calf kicks, start working the body shots. My first left hook body I land, I actually hear him mutter something like, "Oh, not that bad, that one." But that's kind of missing the point. It's more like a repeated thing. So I'm working that away. He lands a few calf kicks on me, and I'm really disappointed in that. I generally don't get leg kicked. I generally tend to check them. But I was pretty disappointed, maybe because I was trying to bounce and feint a bit more, work some boxing, work the jab to the body.
To be fair, he was kicking into your check a lot. I know some of it still gets through, but like the calf kicks you were landing were clean and they were spinning him round and knocking him out of his stance. Whereas the calf kicks he was landing on you, there was still some getting through, but they were landing into your check. And you weren't being knocked out of position by any of them. So it's not the end of the world.
And another important thing is just even if it's there, even if it's not the cleanest check, just keeping control of the cage, getting some points back, thinking almost coming back from that tie mentality of they've scored one, you get one, and then another one. Or you score one, they score one, then you score another one. That kind of 1 + 1 + 1 mentality. So anyway, go back. It's a pretty controlled round. I think in between rounds, you or Pete say to Abdul, what have you got to say? And Abdul's just like, just keep going. It's good. So working away, working more body shots. Hard to extend any combos because he was looking to duck in that much or throw an elbow through the middle of it. Was tricky. Managed to frame him off and defend all his takedowns. But it was tricky. He was an unorthodox guy, which is probably why his jabs and his low kicks, like basic stuff, landed well because he'd spin around, he'd do front kicks to the head, he'd look for knees and elbows, which made it a lot trickier to defend the jab and the low kicks because it was harder to think about.
Yeah, we were thinking game plan wise, it would be a very similar fight to the Dean Truman fight, but we didn't realize how similar it was actually going to be.
Yeah, it was very similar.
It was almost like, when he beat Driscoll for the belt, I was like very, during the fight, during the cornering, during the warm up, I was very emotionally level, and then like when the fight ended, there was this big release, and I was jumping on the cage and then I was crying and all this stuff. Whereas the Bungard one, it was almost just, I've seen this before, because it was just the Dean Truman fight.
Yeah, if you're not aware, my Cage Warriors return was against former featherweight champ, even Dean Truman. And it was kind of that similar pace. He does a bit of good stuff early in round one, then I start breaking him down and finish him with a body shot. Same thing happens here. So it's towards the end of the round, because he'll be landing that cross counter. He's obviously thinking about the right hand. Once they're thinking about the right hand, you can kind of show it, body shot. And I barely put an ounce of sperm into that shot. It was like no power. It's just, but if you catch them in the right spot, catch them when they're breathing at the wrong time, maybe they've taken the breath out at that moment, you've chipped away enough anyway, you've distracted them with something. It doesn't take a lot. 4-ounce gloves, you can just go pop. So it was kind of disappointing when it finished. I get in this ground and pound position, and I know I need to follow up for the ref to stop the fight. But I also know that I don't need the biggest shots in the world to do that. So I'm not trying to like wind up these massive shots, and I end up with my chest on his back. This doing like a little thing in the middle of his back, and I'm chipping away with shots like this. And it does. It's like there's no damage whatsoever. Everyone on TikTok was taking the piss out of that. But yeah, it got the fight finished. I was immediately like, that was a shit fight. I'm not happy with getting jabbed and low kicked. I wanted to do some more interesting stuff.
But yeah, it was all right. It was just very according to plan to an almost boring degree. Like, no disrespect to Chris Bungard, but as soon as that name was given, like I was obviously nervous because what if there's stuff we just don't expect? But I was just like, okay, that's a very just stylistically, that's a very comfortable fight for us. But yeah, he got his first title defense, 3 fights, 3 KO/TKO finishes, 2 of them with body shots in 2022, so that's good. I had a almost like fight of the year kind of. Well, it would have been a fight of the year candidate had Rhys McKee and Justin Burlinson not done what they done on the same night. And then one of my best career performances against Steve Aimable. MFA just generally did really well this year. Mustafa Hanif managed to win his first fight. Rhys, you were saying you not wanting to talk about the training partners?
No, you're just going to a lot.
Oh. Mustafa Hanif won his first fight. Rhys Mohammed, the boss's, I've done it again. You made me self-conscious about it. Rhys Mohammed, the boss's son. Pause it. We'll do the MFA recap in a second.
Just go on it out.
Mustafa Hanif managed to win his first fight. Abdul Muhammad's son, Rhys Mohammed, made his MMA debut. Won against a really good guy in a really good fight, a nice competitive fight. Zanyar Cameron had his MMA debut and he lost as well. So he went 1-1, but he really did show his potential. Like the ceiling is like so high for Zanyar. The guy he lost against, it was in a really close, awkward fight where the guy was doing a lot of stuff that wouldn't necessarily translate to 5-minute rounds, but it managed to edge the decision. But it was a good fight. Leon did the white Derek Lewis performance early, where he was not particularly living like an athlete, and then he got really tired in that fight, but still managed to scramble his way out of all these bad positions, and then really badly hurt his hand, and then landed a hands on the knees, left hand, which was hilarious, but he managed to lose the decision there. But then he came back with just an absolutely spectacular performance on FCC towards the end of the year. just mauled this guy. Looked like his hands looked like the best bits of both of our boxing games, and then he just got it out way quicker than we could ever do in a fight, really. Paul Jones, Big Jonesy, fought for the first time, nearly cried. It was an emotional time. And obviously, Little Hole Joe Fields, who was come to our gym, he won 3 fights, won 2 really prestigious amateur titles. Yeah, mint year for the gym, mint year for us, and 2023 is going to be better.
Yeah, Resident Evil 4 remake. Hope they don't fuck that up.
It looks all right from what I've seen. People complaining fucking that you can knife parry a chainsaw. I ain't complaining about that at all.
Probably game I'm most excited for is Warlong Fallen Dynasty, because it just that other Team Ninja thing coming out. I don't know.
Oh, the one that looks a bit
This looks a bit Elden Ring Sekiro-y.
where you're in more of a city type place.
I don't know. It's hard to keep track since they ended E3. Bring back Tak Fuji.
1 million tubes.
Anything else you want to say?
I mean, just remember in 2023, if you just press XXX, YYY, you'll be sucked.